Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Dinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. So, pranam to all. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for your presence, and honored and blessed by having the association of all of you. And I appreciate the invitation to share some Harikatha today with the Vaishnava community, the assembly here. And as Madan Mohan Prabhu announced, the idea today is to exchange in the context, in the dynamic of questions and answers, which sometimes is classically called in our traditions sambad. Sambad, which basically means can mean conversation or dialogue. If I have this famous Ramananda Sambad among Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananda, or Bhagavad Gita itself, although it's mostly in the dynamic of questions and answers between guru and disciple, but nonetheless it's a dialogue, it's a conversation between, because the one who is answering the questions is no doubt learning and on the process of replying. So both parties are, as we spoke yesterday, students. The two are students from different seats in the room, if you will. Both guru and disciple. So we are to be students forever.
School.
Sorry?
School.
Again?
School.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, for sure. So, let's say, the idea is to invite, if you have any questions, something you would like to ask about, we have some time. So, are there any questions?
Well, I have to start. Yeah, just following on from what we discussed yesterday, that in Shastra, what seems obvious, that the path is laid out from Shraddha to Prem, and we kind of get an understanding that we're heading towards like Vrindavan and Radha and Krishna and whatever our relationship is. And also there is Guru Lila, also Lord Chaitanya is also Lila there. So as a process, as some qualification, as some special mercy placed upon us, with which we can enter into that pastime, those like the transcendental world, the Guru Lila, as opposed to Vraj Lila.
Okay. So, all of you heard the question? Yeah.
Not properly much.
Okay. So I will repeat it. So Nrsimha Bala Prabhu is mentioning that more volume?
Yeah, like
okay. So the question mostly has to do with our prospect in eternity in connection to Mahaprabhu's Lila or Gaur Lila. Generally, we hear about the goal of our life as entrance into Krishna Lila. And of course, that's more than true. We are not denying that fact. But also there is a possibility, or there is dimension in Shastras we will see, of a second, if you will, entry point called Gaur Lila. So the question is there any particular separate sadhana to take us to that Gaur Lila, or how does it happen? How this entrance into the eternal Gaur Lila happens, if it happens at all. Maybe we should say something about it as well. So basically, that's the question. So we will start, and I'm sorry, but I'm not so sure how much all of you are considerably introduced to our philosophy or not. So sometimes this is the complexity of mixed audiences, which is a beautiful challenge, no problem, I accept it. But sometimes some topics one may speak may be too high for some and too low for others. So I beg, bear with me, have some patience. And
So he's saying the Lord has two different sets of pastimes.
Mm-hmm.
Is he saying what is the sadhana to go to both? Is that what you're saying? What is the practice to go to both?
Especially if he's asking in connection to Gaur Lila. If there is a separate sadhana or entrance there. So my point is, again, sorry if some topics may be too high for some, too low for others, bear with me. And it's always good to, how to say, to hear something that we feel is too high for us. It's always to end the class and feel some things I didn't understand. Great, good symptom. If the class finishes and you think I understood everything from tip to toe, I will start to get concerned, basically. No? Because the nature of the topic is unlimited. So there's always room for improvement and learning. And as my Guru Maharaj used to say, even if some things we don't understand, if one single point hits home, and as they say, touches your heart, only one single point in all the lecture, the whole meeting is justified. So do not expect to grasp and swallow every single thing we'll be explaining in the next hour or so. But make your effort for sure, don't be lazy as well. So in connection to the question, yes, there is this possibility, this twofold possibility called Krishna Lila and Gaur Lila. This is an important point in our Gaudiya Sampradaya, because sometimes Gaur Lila is conceived merely as a bridge to Krishna Lila, as a means to the goal. But that's not necessarily only that. No? Gaur Lila can be a goal in itself. And that's why we are worshipping in our altar both Krishna Lila and Gaur Lila. Whatever we place on the altar has an eternal standing, basically, because the altar is kind of a portal, a window that is showing us what's going on in eternity and where do we want to enter. So sometimes in our altars you will see Radha and Krishna, Krishna Balaram, in the context of Krishna Lila, but also we will see what? Sriman Mahaprabhu, Panchatattva, Gaur Nitai, Gaur Gadadhar. So the implication there is there's a window of opportunity in the direction of Gaur Lila for eternity also. So this has been established by, yes? Why not? Sorry, I don't want to leave the Vatsalya camp out. Please. That was not my intention, so I beg your pardon if I make anyone feel kicked out from that particular window. So, of course, each one will have eventually one's own affinity, and there will be some particular focus, whether it be in Krishna Lila and in Gaur Lila. So, for example, acharyas like Sri Thakur Bhaktivinoda, they were really emphasizing this possibility of eternal Gaur Lila in books like Navadvip Dhammahatmya, Navadvip Bhavataranga. And he was, as you may know, in charge of reestablishing many of the Lila styles of Sriman Mahaprabhu. And in big part, that's why he's known to us as the seventh Goswami, because his campaign, if you will, was very much close to that of the six Goswamis. But in his case, especially in connection to Mahaprabhu and Gaur Lila, while the Goswamis, Rupa Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva, and Gopal Bhatta, their main focus was on Krishna Lila, interestingly. Mahaprabhu instructed the Goswamis, empowered the Goswamis, please, as you know, write books to establish our Sampradaya. The Goswamis were as we spoke recently, the architects of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Basically, Mahaprabhu empowered them, instructed them to give shape to the thought of the Sampradaya. Sampradaya means a school of thought that has a particular Siddhanta. And our Siddhanta is based on the Goswami Grantha, or the books of the Goswamis. So the Goswamis in their books, in all of their books, if you pay attention to them, they rarely spoke about Mahaprabhu. They offered some pranam mantra here and there at the beginning of each of their books. They wrote some astakams, some Chaitanya astakam here and there, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. About the six Goswamis, I mean. With Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, we have another layer of Mahaprabhu's Leela. But first, with the six Goswamis, they did not speak too much about Mahaprabhu, interestingly. But as my Guru Maharaj likes to say, they spoke mostly about Krishna. They spoke mostly about Krishna Lila, mostly about Radha Krishna Lila. But in such a way, they spoke about Krishna Lila. They spoke about it in such a way that at one point of your reading, you will start to wonder, where is Gaur Lila? They describe Krishna in such a way that naturally will take you to the conclusion, there must be a Gaur Lila. There must be a natural extension of this Krishna Lila. Because when Krishna Lila reaches its height, you say, its zenith, which is in the Bhagavatam, in the Rasa Panchadhyaya, when Krishna is witnessing the degree of the love of the gopis, and he wants at one point to have an experience of that. Krishna at one point expresses, I'm in debt, eternally in debt for the love you have for me. And I will like, even though in one day of Brahma, I'm not able to repay my debt of love for you, I will make my best to do something to reciprocate accordingly. So our Goswami will say, this is in one sense the birthplace in the Bhagavatam, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu. Although Mahaprabhu is an eternal reality, but it's a way of saying, here in Krishna Lila, high point of Krishna Lila, Gaur Lila is born. Because Krishna is saying, your love for me is such that I'm not only in depth with that, but I am attracted to have an experience of that. And what does it mean? Krishna appearing as Sri Chaitanya. So the point is, again, in the high point of the Krishna Lila, we find Gaur Lila. The deeper you go into one, you find yourself in other. You immerse in one, you merge in other. Krishna Lila, Gaur Lila. My Guru Maharaj likes to compare Krishna Lila and Gaur Lila like a, how do you say in English, reversible jacket? No? Reversible jacket, which is golden with black sleeves. And you give it back, and it's black with golden sleeves. So it's the same jacket, it's the same lila, but in different proportions of rasa and bhava, no? Madhurya, Audharya, but it's the same thing, one and different. Braja and Navadvip are the same, but different. Krishna and Mahaprabhu are the same, but different, in different disposition, emotional disposition. So the Goswamis did this work very expertly. They did not speak about Mahaprabhu too much. They speak about Krishna, but in such a way that they take us to this conclusion, where is Mahaprabhu? So when we start to ask that, then we have persons like Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami giving, here is Mahaprabhu. Here you have Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is the Bhagavat of Mahaprabhu. Basically, you have the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. Showing the Gaur Lila is the natural extension of Krishna Lila. Sometimes it is called the Parishishta Lila. Parishishta means epilogue, like the epilogue of the book. You finish the book, but there's this afterthought. After finishing the book, I have to write this extra chapter to make full circle to the whole story. So Gaur Lila is that. So again, the Goswamis have not spoken about Gaur Lila that much, have not spoken about what to speak the eternality of Gaur Lila, but this was done by future generations, which sometimes these things happen. I mean, because sometimes I've heard about this, a few ones, not too many, but telling me if the Goswami didn't say anything about eternal Gaur Lila, then it doesn't exist. But the point is, if your only point of reference is what the Goswamis said, then the Goswamis also did not describe in detail Mahaprabhu's Leela on earth. So does it mean that because they didn't describe that, it doesn't exist? No? So we take, for example, what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, even though he's not one of the 6 Goswamis, he's one of the, we may call the 8th Goswami. Sometimes there is this extended group. And what he's saying about Mahaprabhu, we are accepting that, and so on. So even though the Goswamis may have not said everything about every single thing, it doesn't mean that further revelation is not possible. Some other members of the Sampradaya may contribute with new insights about what the Goswami said. As long as it does not contradict what the Goswami said, it's no problem. You follow? I mean, there is place for a development of the Siddhanta, a development of a world conclusion. So the Goswami didn't say there's a Nitya Lila, but they say many other things which put in place will show us there is a Gaur Nitya Lila of Mahaprabhu. For example, the Goswami said, all the avatars of Bhagavan have their eternal corresponding abode in the spiritual world. Avatar, eternal descent. So they say all these divine descents, have their own abode, because avatar means a descent. So if you descend, you have to be descending from somewhere. If you don't have a place where you are descending from, you are not an avatar, basically. So if someone comes to your house and say, I am an avatar, if you go to India, you will find one avatar around the corner, basically. So you have to test them a little bit. So where is your planet in Vaikuntha? What's the name? Show me that, take me there, or something. Maybe in Brighton it may not be that usual. I don't think you receive an avatar every day knocking your door. Who knows? Sometimes. So, okay, so just in case, be prepared. You have to know how to inquire from them. So the Goswami say every avatar has their corresponding abode in Vaikuntha. And on the other side, they say, when they refer to Mahaprabhu, they call him an avatar. So the point is, if he's an avatar, although of course we will say he's avatari, but let's take it as an avatar, he's a divine descent. On one side, they say every avatar has an abode in Vaikuntha. Another side, they say Mahaprabhu is an avatar. So if you put the two together, what does it mean? Mahaprabhu is an avatar and he has a corresponding abode in the spiritual world. They didn't say that overtly, but they said other things which put together take us to that conclusion. And that conclusion was said by future members of the Sampradaya, like Dhyana Chandra Goswami, Upal Guru Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So they say something explicitly that the Goswamis didn't say explicitly, but which is not contradicting what the Goswamis say. So that's called Aviruddha Siddhanta or Aviruddha Pramana, which is an evidence which just does not contradict the original premises, even though the Goswamis didn't say that. So on one side we have that. There is the possibility of an eternal Navadvipa. On another side, we have, for example, stalwarts like Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying, but actually, in order for you to enter there, Navadvipa, you have to have an affinity for that realm. You have to have a very deep desire to enter there. If not, you won't go there. So you won't be forced to enter there. And Krishna is not that cruel. That will throw you into some planet that you never wanted to go or something. Sometimes the devotees may have this, with good intention, but naive, like thought, like, well, I'm just chant my rounds and follow 4 regulatory principles, and at the end of my life, I will be sent to Golok Vrindavan with Krishna. But they are not concerning themselves of developing a particular affinity in relation to Krishna. So if you do not have a clue about which type of relationship will you like to establish eternally with Krishna, you won't be sent anywhere. Because you don't have a clear idea. You follow my point. It's not that, no, it doesn't matter. You just send me anywhere and I will fix there somehow. No, it doesn't work like that. No, scriptures say you have to activate, if you will, you have to develop, you have to work on your spiritual identity, and at one point that particular affinity will be such that Krishna will be forced to reciprocate by the strength of love. From bhakti yoga paribhavita hitsarojam ases ritakshitabato nannatapam, he's saying, in the way that my devotee is meditating on me, I will reciprocate accordingly. Deyatamam prapadanti tamstataiva bhajami. Many verses in Shastra about how Krishna reciprocates accordingly. So the point is, if I'm not attracted to worship Bhagavan as Mahaprabhu for eternity, so that window won't be there for us. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes this point in his Jaiva Dharma and in many other treatises. He said, for those who have an affinity towards Mahaprabhu, they will go to Mahaprabhu. He called it Gaura Pit, like the stage where Mahaprabhu is enacting his Leela. For those who have affinity for Krishna, they will go to the Krishna Pit, to the Krishna stage, if you will, to Vrindavan, the Krishna Leela. And then he says, and for those who have affinity towards Krishna and Mahaprabhu, then you have two stages waiting for you. Gaur Pit and Krishna Pit. There are two spiritual identities that you will be in. So I know this may sound a little bit mind-boggling. You start to think how, I mean, at the present moment, it's difficult to deal with one single mind. And you're speaking to me about two. I mean, how, do not overthink that too much, because some smoke will start to appear over here. But the possibility is there. Baladev Vidyabhushan also quotes that in one section in the Vedanta Sutra. He's commenting also, he's saying the liberated being, the muktas, can have no body. There's that possibility as well. It's not our school, but that possibility is there, Brahma Sayuja. No body whatsoever, one body, or two bodies or more. So there's plenty of options in the transcendental realm. So again, in our particular school of thought, Gaudiya Vedanta, these are the options. Again, interestingly, there's not like some forced imposition, like you have to go to the two places. We can go to one, we can go to the other. But the invitation is there. And as much as we understand these two leelas, of course, they are not entirely, again, as we mentioned, separate things. Krishna there, Krishna Leela there, Gaur Leela over there. But again, go to the example of the reversible jacket. Now it's the same Leela, but from two different vantage points. So the question mainly, this was most an introduction to the question. So you start to have a glimpse of the length of my replies. So how to enter there? Basically, Nrsimhabala is asking if one would like to go there, if one feels the inspiration to go to the Gaur Leela. And it's a very nice inspiration. It's a very interesting idea, because sometimes I've heard the word saying, well, Gaur Leela doesn't seem too much that exciting. I've heard that sometimes. I mean, I don't agree, but I heard that sometimes. No? Like Krishna Leela, you have all these intrigues and rendezvous and Krishna meeting Radha and the Parakiya and all this like parallel situation and the daily meetings and all the risk and this and that. But Gaur Leela doesn't seem that dynamic or that exciting. But actually, that means you are not really understanding what's Gaur Leela about. Because as we say today in the morning, what does it mean, Gaur Leela? Gaur Leela means that everyone there in the Gaur Leela, every member of the eternal Gaur Leela are acting as devotees, as Mahaprabhu and his associates do, but they are acting as perfected devotees. No? They are not going through the ups and downs of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya and falling and getting up. They are like in the highest possible stage of being a devotee at every moment for eternity. So all the incredible things that Shastra is saying about what happens when you practice in the ideal way, all those things are happening there at every single moment. For example, Shastra is saying, if you chant the name of Krishna just once, all the things can happen. Ideally, potentially, if you chant purely without offense, half a syllable, this will happen. And of course, we will do that and it doesn't happen. It's not happening. Not because they are lying to us, but we still are not chanting from the perfected stage. But they in Gaur Leela are chanting from the perfected stage at every single moment. So all the things that Shastra say are happening there at every moment. They start the kirtan, they all faint in ecstasy after 5 seconds or something. No? And things like this, no? Very ecstatic, very dynamic. So do not tell us that it's not so exciting. No?
It takes in that same verse, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So we have all these parallel leelas also among Krishna Leela and Gaur Leela. You have the Rasa Leela in Vrindavan, and you have the Rasa Sankirtan at Srivasangam between Mahaprabhu. And so all these parallel Leelas in Krishna, you have the corresponding version in Gaur Leela, like show it's the same Leela, but from a slightly different perspective. No? So it's a complementary thing. It's not contradictory. It's not one opposed to the other. It's not something that, oh, if I go to one, I will lose something from the other. Sometimes we may, again, overthink the whole thing and it won't work like that. And we are now, in one sense, in a Gaur Leela here. We are in the extension of Gaur Leela by the grace of Guru, and Gauranga, and Parampara. We are being part of the Gaur Leela, even though we may not be fully aware of that, if you will. The more we become sadhakas, proper practitioners, as we are expected to be, the most perfected we become as practitioners, the more you realize, wow, I'm in Gaur Leela. I'm in Gaur Leela. Even though some may say, oh, but Gaur Leela is over for 500 years back. In one sense, it's over. In another sense, it's still going on because, again, the Sankirtan movement of Mahaprabhu and all that it implies is being carried year after year, but the current of Parampara touching our hearts through the sadhus. So we are invited to be part of that. And the more we awake to our reality as sadhakas, the more we will find ourselves in the midst of Gaur Leela. I always remember one very beautiful kirtan in which Srila Bhakti-Vallabh Maharaj was singing. He's a disciple of Srila Bhakti-Daita Madhav Goswami Maharaj, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And for those who have known Srila Vallabh Maharaj, he was really volcanic and intense, no? And his kirtans were like moving. I had the chance of meeting him in his last year when he was no longer speaking, and nonetheless his presence was totally like overwhelming without speaking. So I was thinking, what must it be when he was speaking and singing and dancing? So I saw once one video, I remember many of them, but this in particular, he was like doing some kirtan in I think it was a hotel room in Hawaii or something, you know, like maybe 20 years back. He was singing and dancing in such a way and calling, crying out the names of Nityananda and Gauranga. And all the time, that lasted for an hour or so, he was singing, and we were speaking the other day with Malprat. He was looking like to this direction, like to someone who will measure 2 meters and something more. So you can imagine who I'm speaking about. It was not an NBA basketball player he had. No? So he was having direct darshan of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So he was in Gaur Leela, basically. And he was aware of that. And he was a player, full player there. So the difference with that is that we are also in Gaur Leela, but we are not fully aware of that. And that's our lack of fortune, in one sense. But at the same time, we have the good fortune to receive the mercy and the sadhana to enter more into that awareness. So with this, I'm saying, the point I make is there is no need for a separate sadhana to access Gaur Leela for those who will like. No? We already have received a particular sadhana to enter Krishna Leela called Raganuga sadhana, Raganuga Bhakti sadhana, as was depicted by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and so on. So in that particular sadhana, what's implications of engaging in Raganuga sadhana? And again, sorry for those who are coming for first time, so many new words, but I'm sure you are grasping some ideas. He says, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipshanakarya brajalokana sadhana. Raganuga bhakti means serving in your sadhaka deha and in your siddha deha, which basically means two identities. As a sadhaka, as a devotee, as a practitioner, but what in your internal meditative body in Krishna Leela. But the point is, when this body becomes engaged in bhakti and becomes purified, spiritualized by sadhana, this body is no longer a physical body. This body becomes a fit body to enter eternally into Gaur Leela and serve there. That's why when a pure devotee leaves this world, in our tradition, we generally do not cremate the body. but what we call is put the body in samadhi. So samadhi means perfect meditation, basically. So samadhi means this person attained the perfection of devotional absorption, therefore her body is totally spiritual. So since that body is totally spiritual, that body is eternally serving, existing in the spiritual world. So we are not burning, we preserve the body, it's put in with salt and so on, and some, how do you say, commemorative, that word exists? Okay. Some little temple, if you will, is built over that, like to commemorate this point. No, this personality in that particular body has accessed the spiritual world, in this case, Gaur Lila. And that's why the pictures of our gurus in our altar appear in that particular form. Remember, I said before, the altar for us is a window into eternity. And we have the pictures of our gurus there, implying they are serving in eternity in those bodies. They are serving Mahaprabhu in Gaur Lila in a younger body as we have met them. It is said that they are serving him as Brahmin boys of 12, 13 years in Dasya Bhakti with some tinge of Sakya Bhakti. They are serving Mahaprabhu there. In the same mode that we serve our Guru in this lifetime, basically, with some Dasya, but some Sakya, some trust, some confidence also. So again, there's no separate sadhana to access Gaur Lila. It's just about how we conduct ourselves in sadhana. If we have the affinity towards Gaur Lila, through our sadhana we will go there. If Krishna Lila is there, we will go there. Krishna Lila, Gaur Lila is there, we will go there.
So the point you made was that if one focuses on Radha Krishna only, then they can attain Radha Krishna only. And if one focuses on Chaitanya Lila only, he can attain Chaitanya Lila only. But we see in our Sampradaya, we're always worshipping both, aren't we? In our following, we're always worshipping Nitya, we're always worshipping Radha Krishna. So for us, we should attain both eventually.
I agree. Yeah. See you there.
Haribo.
It sounds like a good prospect, no?
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in Navadvipa Bhavataranga, for example.
Best of both worlds.
But what about, in some places it's said like without worshipping Gaur Nitai you cannot attain Radha Krishna in Kali Yuga?
Yeah, that's an important point as well. That generally for us the entrance into Krishna Lila is through the gate of Gaur Lila. But again, the point here is some people may conceive Gaur Lila as an entry gate and not so much as a destiny unto itself. Some people will go to Mahaprabhu, Sankirtan, Gaur Lila, etc., but just as an entry point to access Krishna Lila, while some others will find that gate so beautiful, they will say, I would like to stay in this gate for eternity. It's not only a gate, of course. They realize, there is a possibility of this not only being a bridge by a planet unto itself, basically, But yeah, interestingly, this mentioning is there. For example, Prabodhananda Saraswati says, Jatayata Gaura Padara Bindam, Mindeta Bhaktim Krita Punya Rasi, Tatat Sarkha Hridya Kashmat, Radha Padam Bhojam Sudambu Rasi. The more you go deep into the service of Sriman Mahaprabhu, the more you emerge into the service of Sri Radha. So that's the typical idea of you enter into Gaur Lila, and go deep into Gaur Lila, and you find yourself in Krishna Lila. But also there's another verse, which I don't know it by heart in Sanskrit, so you may forgive me, by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in his Sarvabhauma Sarthaka, which says exactly the opposite. I mean, not like contradicting, but he's saying, the more you go deep into Krishna Lila, the more you appear into Gaur Lila. So those are the dynamics. The more you go immerse in Krishna Lila, you emerge in Gaur Lila. The more you immerse in Gaur Lila, the more you emerge in Krishna Lila. The conclusion basically is the two are one. There's not really a line. There are the Gaur Lila, there's the Krishna Lila. Because again, all the things are not in terms, and I know this is difficult to conceive, but we're not speaking about places that you will travel in a plane and you will reach geographically here or there. It's more a movement in terms of consciousness. It's a meditative movement, not so much like sometimes the Shastra will say, yeah, Bhimana came from Vaikuntha and took Dhruva Maharaj, and they traveled who knows how many kilometers, but it's not something that you can measure. Because at the moment you want to measure, how do we say measurement in our tradition? Maya. And there's no Maya in Vaikuntha. There's no Vaikuntha means basically that, no limits, no measurement possible here. So we have to be careful not to, again, overthink the whole thing. So yeah, that would be the idea. Some people would say Gaur Lila is the entry point, and that's a fact. I mean, if we want to attain Krishna Lila, first the means is Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan has to do with Gaur Lila. So, and some will consider the means as a means and the goal as Krishna Lila, but some others, as we mentioned, will find Gaur Lila charming enough to remain there forever as well. And they don't want to lose that particular experience. So there's possibility for that. And of course, that's the general idea. Of course, we can go even to more atypical cases, but my point is, for example, sometimes this may be more an exception to the rule, but sometimes I'm seeing devotees who have some other affinity because of previous association or previous lifetime, we don't know. But for, I don't know, Ram Bhakti, for example, somehow there is place for them. They may not have an affinity for Krishna Lila, let's say, but they have affinity towards Gaur Lila. And they may worship Murari Gupta and have some connection in that line. Mahaprabhu himself showed this type of, let's say, religious tolerance, if you will. Now, when he saw some Ram Bhaktas on his journey in South India, he was not trying just to convert every single person. When he saw they have real affinity for Ram Bhakti in this case, he tried to nourish that. Like the famous example of this Brahmin who was invited Mahaprabhu for lunch. So Mahaprabhu was waiting for lunch to be ready. 1 hour passed, 2 hours, 3 hours, and some more hours. So Mahaprabhu went to the kitchen and he found the Brahmin, the cook, was crying on the floor in one corner and said, what happened? Lunch, you need some help for peel the potatoes or some help with something? And the Brahmin was crying and devastated, absorbed in the Leela, saying, how can we think about eating when Sita has been kidnapped by Rama? We have to think about the means of rescuing her. He was crying, totally into the Leela. Mahaprabhu was like, wow, totally like charmed by his devotional absorption in Ram. And he tried to support him, to console, you say, in his situation, no? And he was really devastated. Mahaprabhu eventually continued his journey into South India, and eventually when he went upwards back to Puri, he went back again in the same house of this Brahmin, and he had found on the way one text from Kurma Purana, which states how actually Sita was never kidnapped by Ravana. The only Sita that was kidnapped was a Maya Sita, or an illusory form. But the real Sita cannot be even touched by Ravana, which represents materialistic consciousness. So Mahaprabhu found that verse and immediately thought, I will share this with this Brahmin who is suffering so much. So he was thinking how I can nourish the faith and the bhakti of this devotee. He was not thinking I will convert him and send him to Golok Vrindavan. What about this nonsense of Ayodhya? No, he was thinking how I can serve his bhakti. So he found this verse, he went back and he shared that, trying to console him further. He did. No? So we see in Mahaprabhu, who is the Istadev of our Sampradaya, this example. Now, if someone has real faith in one direction or another, we are to honor that faith. No? It's not that we are to try to change their minds so they become part of our club or something. Not necessarily. Faith is a sacred
spiritual flow. Spiritual form.
Yeah, faith is a sacred principle. So wherever it manifests, however it manifests, faith is to be honored by us. My Guru Maharaj likes to say, faith is our deity, and not our doormat, you'll say. So faith is to be honored in whatever form it appears by us. It doesn't mean that we will change our faith every single day. We may have our own affinity, but if we have real affinity in some direction, even if we see someone else having another affinity, another flavor of faith, if our faith is correct, we will be nourished by everyone else's faith. We're speaking about...
Respect everybody.
Yeah. And respect everybody, of course, it doesn't only mean do not offend everyone, but even respect everybody means learn from everybody.
Yeah.
It's not just like formal respect. I respect you, I respect you. But when we will get too closer, I start to be disturbed, so I have to respect you from being distant. By respect everybody means learn from everybody, nourish yourself. And we were speaking with Ram Govinda yesterday about that. No? I mean, for example, I like this section, and maybe I'm going to another topic now, but it happens, no problem. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Srila Sanatana Goswami, I always quote this section, I loved it. On Gopa Kumar is an example of someone who has attraction towards Krishna as a friend. His spiritual ideal is to serve Madan Gopal in Sakhyabha, in Priyanarma Sakhyabha. As an intimate friend, serve Krishna in Vrindavan. So he's traveling around so many different, let's say, layers of spiritual possibility and finding so many devotees with other affinities different than his. But it's not that he gets like disturbed and these people are nonsense and I have to convert them or nothing like that. But the opposite, he nourishes from the faith of each one. For example, when he reaches Ayodhya is the realm of Sri Ram, who is God as an ideal king, as we know. He finds the ideal devotee of Ramachandra, who is, you tell me, Hanuman. Sri Hanumanji ki jai. So they meet each other. It's a very interesting inter-religious meeting there. No? Hanuman and Gopa Kumar. So they are worshipping the same person because Krishna and Ram are the same person in different emotional disposition, but they are nonetheless the same person. In Tattva, Krishna and Ram are one. In Bhava, they're different. So, interestingly, they meet each other and Gopa Kumar asks Hanuman. He's not trying to convince him, come with me to Vrindavan, this is the real thing over there or something. He's saying, oh, you worship Sri Ram, please chant the glories of your Lord. So Hanuman starts not to sing and to chant, to do kirtan, absorbing Sri Ramachandra and crying. And Gopa Kumar is hearing all that. And when Hanuman ends his kirtan, Gopa Kumar says, Jai Sri Krishna. Like implying, my faith in my Istadev has been nourished by hearing your faith in your Istadev. So there's no conflict. You have nourished your faith. And then Hanuman tells Gopa Kumar, now you please chant the glories of your Prabhu, of your master. So Gopa Kumar starts to engage in Nam Sankirtan, singing his favorite names of Krishna in Vrindavan and Sakhyarasa. So, and Hanuman is hearing. And at the end of the Kirtan, what does Hanuman say? Jai Shri Ram. So that's the perfection of inter-religious dialogue. You follow? It's not that I'm trying to convince you this is the best, mine is the best, but the two of us are nourishing each other. And how to say? I mean,
yes, God is one.
Yeah,
but He's attractive in different ways.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So even if we will say, we were speaking about this the other day, objectively speaking, we could establish which is the form of God, the sweetest form of God. We can establish that objectively. And our conclusion as Gaudiya will be Krishna in Vrindavan. But the point is, not necessarily everyone likes sweet that much.
Yeah.
So objectively, Krishna is the sweetest. Subjectively, someone may say what will Hanuman say? But I am attracted to Ram. What you will do? I mean, you have to learn from that. Objectively speaking, mango is the sweetest fruit. Subjectively speaking, I may like apples. You follow my point? So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami makes this point over and over again in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he says, every devotee feels that his relationship with his Lord, the particular form, every devotee feels his relationship or her relationship is the best.
Yeah.
And then he says, and everyone is right. So, because if you don't feel my relationship is the best, what the hell are you doing there? If I'm not convinced that what I'm doing now is the best, what I'm doing here, but the problem is when I try to convince you that what I'm doing should be the best for you too, that's the problem. Because if you have something else that is the best for you and it's really working for you, I mean, I should again honor that, and I should learn from that. Sorry?
Because we're all different.
Yeah, unity and diversity. We have to allow the two. Diversity is crucial. Unity also, because if we have only diversity, that's chaos. No, we know that in this world, if there is no common interest, and we just disagree about everything, it's not very nice. I mean, it's not peaceful. It's total like. Sometimes they have this saying, I don't know here in England, like how they say, like diversity is the spice of life. It's variety. Okay, variety is the spice of life. But too much spice is also not too nice. You cannot eat. Huh? If you get an overdose of masala, I mean, no, thank you. The variety, but not that much variety. We need unity also. The unity will contextualize variety. No? So we need a common ground, a common foundation, a common interest, a common goal. And on the basis of that unity, so much variety can be there. And that will be actually beautiful because, again, only diversity is conflict. Only unity, it's boring. Imagine if we agree in everything and we think exactly and feel exactly about everything. I mean, after 5 minutes, we are going crazy. We all start to think, please think differently than me. Be different, please, for me. I'm getting desperate. Too much unity. We agree in everything. It's like, oh my God. But if you go to the other end of the spectrum and you don't agree in anything, that's equally overwhelming. So the two of them need to be integrated. So this has to be applied in of course, in our human relationship, but also in the spiritual pursuit. So much variety is there. In our tradition, it's not there's only one form of God, one place to be, one single path, one. I mean, we know which is the result of that type of proposal. So personally, you will feel this is the best thing, this is the best path, this is for me, and maybe for others, hopefully someone else, but not necessarily everyone. Okay, now I have like 3, 4. First Sridhar, the left, was moving her hand like an hour ago, so we'll go first to her.
What I wanted to ask you to confirm, you say that the deities on an altar are a door into the spiritual world, and I have 2 brass deities, and they're beautiful, and they often have smiles on their faces. And
why only often?
Every day.
Thank you. Someday they are not smiling. Maybe Shirada is not behaving properly. Just joking. I know they are quite happy with you. So there is a question or just sharing?
Yes. So,
yeah.
The fact that they're a doorway to the spiritual world. I mean, I give them water every day and flowers. And I don't have beds to put them to. I cover them in night things and everything. But what's the most pleasing?
What's the more
pleasing to them?
what we can do for them that may be most pleasing to them. Well, we know that Krishna says that very simply and nicely in the Gita. Patram pushpam palam toyam jumi bhakti prayajati tadaham bhakti pahritam ashnami prayatatmanam. You can offer to me water, flower, fruit, leaf, but the condition, because it sounds simple, oh, that's simple. But please, 2 times the same word appears in the verse, bhakti, bhakti. So Krishna's diet is on the basis of bhakti. No? He likes kachori, samosa, but without bhakti, he won't take them. But if you have bhakti, if there is bhakti, he may be even eating banana peels, as we know.
You're talking about love.
Exactly. So that's his diet about. In the beginning, of course, we may not have that love, and that's why generally it's recommended you worship the deity in an elaborate way and invest time, money, and ingredients. Again, it's not that sometimes someone may ask, but God doesn't need my money. Why you're asking money and all that? No, he doesn't need that, but you need to give that to him, to acknowledge who is its source. And you need to get detached. Like sometimes one devotee was given a class, one guru was given a class, and at the end someone asked him, he was speaking about the things along this line, someone asked him, are you more interested in my heart or in my pocket? Someone asked the person quite challengingly in that way. And the other person say, I'm interested in both. Why? Because your heart now, it's in your pocket. So because your heart is in your pocket, I want your pocket. I don't want your pocket, I want your heart. But your heart happens to be in your pocket. So I want your pocket. You follow? So when we hear, ideally, when we hear one should give a donation to God or to the temple, ideally, it's the idea behind that is it's not about the money, it's about giving, at least in some sustainable part, a part of you that you know you're attached to, and by giving that voluntarily, not forced, gradually you are giving more and more of yourself and your heart, because you cannot give your whole heart in one single shot. I mean, it's not, so it's in installments, not sustainable installments. So we have to begin somewhere. But eventually, yeah, what Krishna is interested in is give me your heart. I mean, I don't care about anything else. And if you give me your heart, externally, you can be offering me one drop of water, the most insignificant thing, if you will, but the heart is there. So this famous example, you may know the story, but I will repeat it nonetheless, with your permission and blessings, of Vidura's wife and Duryodhana. No? So Duryodhana once invited Krishna and offered him a royal feast. But because he wanted to have Krishna on his side regarding the Kurukshetra war that was coming. So it was a totally calculated, manipulative strategy, not something out of the heart. But externally, all the 108 preparations you can think of and more. But Krishna, he's Baba Grahi Janardana. It is said in the Veda, Baba Grahi Janardana. He only takes Baba, the essence of your attitude. He's taking that only. So you can fool him. No? Externally, you can make all the show you want. And some people may be fooled by you, but not Krishna, not the sadhus. No, they will see beyond the shell and go to the active principle. So Krishna entered the city of Hastinapur, and Duryodhana was making not only a great feast, but he had like a band of musicians playing music, like welcoming him, people from the rooftop throwing flower petals. He had the whole show established, trying to calculate and have Krishna. But Krishna realized there is no bhakti here. So it is said from 2 sides of the street, all this great event was taking place, welcoming Krishna, and Krishna just walked between the street, right the way to the end of the street, as if nothing was happening around him, like totally blind and deaf to all that paraphernalia, because there was no bhakti. So he just walked like if he will be walking in a Sahara desert or something. There's nothing going on here. But at the end of the street, something is going on. there is the house of Vidura, who is my devotee. And Vidura is poor, materially speaking, only materially speaking. He was born in a Sudra family, which it may not be seen like a highest possible thing, but for Krishna, he remains saying, he's my devotee. I don't care for anything else. So he goes there, he knocks on the door, Vidura was not there, his wife was there, and he was surprised because, Krishna was on the other side of the door. Imagine someone knocks your door, and this was not an avatar from Brighton, but it was Avatari, the source of all avatars, actually knocking in your door. And not only knocking your door, but entering, like if it's his own house, and saying, I'm hungry, do you have something to eat? Like when you go and visit your mom, you will act like that. It's not like, excuse me, dear mother, do you think that there is something extra in the fridge? You won't say that to your mother. You say, Mom, I'm hungry. No? And the mother will be happy to provide. So Krishna entered like that. He was at home. Say, I'm hungry. What do you have? So Vidura's wife was in ecstasy to receive Krishna, but at the same time, like surprised, unexpected visit. But the Vedas say, Atiti Devo Bhavam. An unexpected guest is to be treated as God himself. What to speak if God himself is the unexpected guest? This is the tradition in India. If someone comes to your house without telling you, by surprise, Atiti Devo Bhavam, he or she is to be treated as God himself, like implying generally God comes to our lives unexpectedly, and we should be willing to receive him whenever he knocks the door. But again, in this case, he was knocking the door and he was God himself, and he was hungry. So she was poor, so she was not prepared with hundreds of preparations. She said, I only have some bananas. And Krishna said, bring the bananas. Actually, he didn't care about bananas or not bananas. He wanted to eat the bhakti of his devotees, basically, to swallow the love of Vidura's wife in this case. So Vidura's wife started to peel the bananas, totally overwhelmed by love and affection. And in the overwhelming of that love and affection, what did she do? So she started to throw away the bananas and to give Krishna the peels, without realizing she was doing that, of course. But the overwhelming of devotion blinded her. Let's say love is blind, right? So they are right. Love is blind in the proper sense of the term. So she was giving the peels to Krishna. So that's not all, but the most surprising thing is that Krishna is receiving the peels. So one can say, okay, he received the peels. Krishna is saying in the Gita, if you offer me with love anything, I accept that. So one could say, okay, Krishna accepted the peels. But no, he didn't. He not only accepted them, he started to eat the peel. But he could have just only accepted them, not to eat the banana peel. But he didn't. As in the same way as Vidura's wife was not realizing I'm giving Krishna banana peels, in the same exact way, Krishna reciprocated in that same exact degree of love. And he himself was not realizing I'm eating banana peels. He was not aware I'm eating banana peels. She was not aware I'm giving banana peels. Because she was giving her love and Krishna was eating her love. If someone comes and says, hey, it's banana peels. The two of them will look at you like crazy, like, shut up. And they will continue like, you follow. That's how it works. No? That's why Krishna says in the Gita, Apichet suduracharo vajanti mama nanyapak sadureva samantavya samakvya. Even if my devotee sometimes may engage in a terrible mistake, if he or she is totally determined in worshiping me with love and sincerity, for me that person is totally saintly. That's my opinion. So one could say, offering banana peels to God, that's a terrible offense. Of course, we won't take this story as an excuse and now from now on start offering banana peels to the deity. Don't do that, Sridhar. But someday we want to reach that point of love that we will end up offering banana peels to Krishna without noticing that. You follow? That's the goal of our worship. Our worship will be so much like overflowing in emotion that these details, now these are very important things. What we offer, best quality ingredients, properly prepared. I mean, it's a way of absorbing our faculties in the offering, and we get captured and absorbed. But when that love is overflowing, we won't be thinking about those things. We will just be carried away by these emotional waves. Like as we were speaking the other day, Sanatana Goswami, he's worshiping Madan Mohan. I'm daily preparing some unsalted bread. And Madan Mohan, deity, will speak to him. That's the goal of Archana, that the deity will start to speak to you someday. And then you have to take the Archana Padati and throw it away on the window. There's no more need to claim Krishna, Idam Naibidya. All that will be totally forgotten. You will start to tell Krishna, what's happening? Well, I'm coming and going. That's the goal of following all rules and regulations. Rules are made to be broken, but only by those who have followed the rules very nicely, not in an anarchist way. So Sanatana Goswami was offering this bread, and Krishna is saying, but this doesn't have salt. Don't you have some salt? Imagine the deity one day will ask you, why there's no salt in the bread? So there's another level of, there's not worship. The term worship is not longer applicable there. There's loving interaction. And Sanatana Goswami will tell to Madan Mohan what? I told you that I don't have salt. I told you I'm poor, tyagi, I don't have anything. And I wanted you to come with me, but there were some conditions for that. And I told you, I can only offer this on a daily basis. I don't have even for salt. So don't ask for salt. And if you want salt, better you go somewhere else. So you choose. You remain with me without salt, or you go somewhere else. You won't speak like this to the teacher, right? That's not prescribed in the Archana Padati. But at some point, again, your worship will become so much bhajan-like that it seems that you are contradicting the previous advice. And again, you will say to the I don't have any salt. And Mohan, what did he say to Sanatana Goswami? Oh no, it's okay, I remain with you without salt. No, so the idea of the story is, I don't care for salt, I care for your heart. So the idea of asking for salt is like a way of churning the bhav, as we say, stirring the dal a little bit more to make. And of course, we know the story later. Mohan made the arrangement for a whole ship of salt to come. So there was salt. You want salt, you have salt. But Sanatana Goswami was in his particular mood. So that's how it works, no? So you raise your hands also. Yeah. Your name, sorry?
My name is
Rupa Vilas. Yeah.
Thank you very much so far.
Thank
Been refreshing and very inspiring to hear. And actually, I had a long doubt from long ago.
Oh.
Just a small detail, but now just came to my mind. Oh, maybe this is the right place that I can have some light on.
Let's see.
And it's just that simple verse that you quoted already. This Yeya Tamam Prabhadyanti Sateli Bhajana. So it says, as everyone surrenders, and then Krishna uses the word Bhajaniyaham Adubhajan, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I never had any explanation on that, but when I read it, it sounds so extraordinary that it's saying I do bhajan to that.
Mm.
I don't know if that's what you can say about that, or other ways of understanding that word.
I mean, mainly the main word will be in connection, the main question will be in connection with the term bhajami.
Why Krishna is using that term, saying, I will do that, I will do bhajan to those as they surrender unto me.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Well, the term bhajami in this particular case generally is translated as reciprocate. So, as you see, the general translation of the verse is, as someone approaches me, I reciprocate. So there's one level of explanation of the verse, and the term is Krishna reciprocates to whatever approach one is taking, because again, not everyone approaches Krishna in terms of bhajan. I mean, not everyone, Krishna says in the Gita before, well, Chatur Vida Bhajante Mam, he says, Artha Jignasura, Artha Tigyani Chavaratarsh. Not everyone approaches me in terms of bhajan. Some wants rich wealth from me, some want money, someone
Distressed.
are afflicted, someone knowledge, some are wise, blah, 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 and so on. So the point is not everyone is approaching me in terms of bhajan. So of course, if someone approaches me for money, I won't reciprocate in terms of bhajan because that person does not care for that. So I won't force myself into the person. So for those like non-bhajan examples, this idea of aham bhajami aham basically refers to I reciprocate accordingly. So accordingly means if there is no bhajan, I won't force my bhajan onto them. But for those who approach in terms of bhajan, then the word bhajami aham can be translated as I do bhajan for them. Because again, in this case, I reciprocate accordingly means if she approaches me in terms of bhajan, I reciprocate in terms of bhajan. So of course, on bhajan, maybe just clarification. Sometimes it's translated as worship, but it's not technically worship because sometimes worship we will take more like a ritual type of approach or some distance will be there. But here we are speaking about the very intimate type of connection, like the examples we have been sharing till now. Sanatana Goswami, Vidura's wife, all this is bhajan. It's a really heartfelt connection. And of course, Krishna is there to, again, reciprocate accordingly as much as he can. As we know, as I mentioned today before, when he witnesses the degree of the gopis' love for him, especially Sri Radha, he says, I cannot reciprocate accordingly. In the Bhagavatam, he contradicts himself in relation to this verse of the Gita. In the Gita, Krishna says something. In the Bhagavatam, says, I cannot follow what I say in the Gita. No? So the Bhagavatam is like upgraded version, PhD of what the Gita is saying. Krishna says, yeah, I reciprocate accordingly, but when I witness the love of the gopis, I cannot reciprocate. I'm eternally defeated. I'm eternally in debt. So, and he appears as Mahaprabhu trying to pay that debt somehow or other. But yeah, in general terms, or in more specific terms, sorry, we could take this section of the verse with Krishna saying, I myself engage in bhajan, because again, love is reciprocal. So, I mean, it is said that if Krishna appears as Gopal, as a little boy, is because on the other side, if you will, of the spectrum, there is some devotee which a desire of serving Krishna in that particular mood that takes him up to appear in that particular form to properly reciprocate with that desire. So that's the same idea. I mean, the devotee has a desire for bhajan, and a particular form of Krishna manifests to reciprocate with that desire for bhajan. And in that form, he engages in bhajan with that particular devotee. So yeah, that's a nice point you're making. Krishna also engages in bhajan. It's not only we are to engage in bhajan and Krishna is just like receiving the bhajan, if you will, receiving our. No, he's totally engaged in that as well. I mean, that's his highest pleasure, basically. I mean, that he's controlled by that. He's driven by that law.
He's the object of devotion for the devotee, and the devotee is the object of devotion.
Exactly. Krishna for us is Vishaya and Ashraya. Yeah, exactly. So that's how it works. Now it's important always to make the two sides of the coin, the emphasis in the two directions, because if not, we may have this wrong idea. Okay, everything for God, for Krishna, he receives, but no, there is a. And actually, as we said the other day, if we are trying to give something to him, it's because he first gave something to us. He took the initiative. And now we are trying to reciprocate. So we don't have to play the victim in front of Krishna. Oh, I have to give, but will you give me something? I mean, if we are trying to give, it's because he gave something to begin with. So. But nice point. Thanks so much. So you raised the hand some while ago?
I think it was answered.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah. Okay, we have some extra minutes, some 10 more minutes.
I've got one.
Sorry?
So you said about Krishna reciprocating when he sends him bhakti. So what about Putana
Putana, that's a very extraordinary case.
Yeah.
And that's why that's especially highlighted in the Bhagavatam. We have this verse what Uddhava is singing. Aho Bhakyam Shanakalakutam Jigyam Sayapaya Apishadvi Levengatin Datriuchitam Tatonyam Kambam Dayalum Sharanam Brajima. This is the verse that Mukunda also sang when Gadadhar Pandit was singing Pundarik Vidyanidhi and mistaking Pundarik Vidyanidhi for Vishai, sense and joy. And Mukunda says, oh, he's mistaking a great personality. And he sang this verse and Pundarik Vidyanidhi fell from the throne and started to shout in ecstasy, especially the last line. Kambandayalum Sharanam Rajiv. So this verse basically is saying, and Uddhava is saying this. Uddhava, we know he's the great devotee, greatest Jnani, if you will, knowledgeable person, Krishna's personal minister in Dwarka. So many qualities he has, such a sober, wise personality. So if he is saying something, the point of the Bhagavatam is we are to take that very seriously. And what he's saying is this verse, he's saying, how can I surrender to someone more merciful than Krishna, who has bestowed onto Putana the position of a mother while she approached him with poison on her breasts. So the situation is the most imaginable or unimaginable. Thank you. Contrast we can imagine, because try to enter into the scene. You have a baby who was born up 3-4 days back. For those who are parents, especially, you will get some emotional connection here. You have a baby, 3 days old. And suddenly one lady comes who appears like the most beautiful, charming, nourishing lady. It's almost like as if Lakshmi Devi herself has landed on your neighborhood. And in a very loving way, she's offering to, I would say, breastfeed your baby. And she's so charming and so beautiful, and everything is so nice about her that you naturally hand your baby to her. It may not happen nowadays, but that happened those times. So Krishna is handed down to Putana, but actually she was bringing poison on her breasts. So I mean, if that happens here, that will appear in which is the main newspaper in England. I don't know. Whatever, the Brighton or something. like mother poisons her child with breast poison. I mean, it's like too weird. I mean, too dark. You follow me? It's really extreme contrast, like a just born baby and a lady appearing as if nourisher, but actually wanted to kill him. It's like the worst possible thing. And that's not all. How Krishna reacted to that, she gave Putana Vatsalya Rasa. She was like, what? I mean, it's the most extreme reaction that has nothing to do with, I mean, Putana's approach was to kill Krishna in the most, let's say, nefarious possible way. And Krishna is just giving her Vatsalya Vabhika. But he thought, she approached me dressed as a Vaishnavi. So she wanted to offer breast milk, and somehow I take something. So the point is, this is an example of extreme mercy. According to the language of Srila Rupa Goswami, this is called Kripa Siddhi. There are 3 types of perfection we can attain, or not we can attain. Three types of perfection. One is Nitya-Siddha, means someone is eternally perfect, like Nanda, Yashoda, Lalita, Vishaka. They are eternally perfect. They are Nitya-Siddhas. Nitya-Siddha Krishna Prem. They are personifications of Prem who eternally exists. That's not us, just in case. So that's Nitya-Siddhi, the eternal perfection of the eternal associates of Bhagavan. Then you have Sadhana-Siddhi, or Siddha, and Kripa-Siddhi. So Sadhana-Siddhi is the perfection that is attained through practice, through sadhana. And Kripa-Siddhi is the perfection that is attained through mercy. through grace. Now, that said, sadhana siddhi, perfection through practice, also implies lots of mercy. You follow? It's not that, okay, I will practice for myself and attain Golok Vrindavan without any type of divine grace. No, it doesn't work like that. But a considerable investment of yourself in sadhana is required for perfection to come. While kripa siddhi means perfection through extreme mercy, which means no sadhana involved whatsoever. You did nothing, but nothing to deserve that. Actually, you did everything to not deserve that. And on top of that, Krishna just whimsically, no, but Salibab, I mean, he can do that if he wants. But that's more like an exception to the rule. But nonetheless, that's a possibility. Of course, that's not a possibility that we are recommended to entertain.
Yeah.
You follow? Okay, I will put poison.
When you was talking about the vaccine.
Yeah.
Relationship.
But of course, we are not to follow the Putana Sampradaya. No, I will smear my body with poison and embrace the deity, and hopefully he gave me Vatsalya or something. No? Most probably it won't happen. I gave the example sometimes, like if you are working and you say, but you think, but I may win the lottery someday. So if I win the lottery, I don't need to work. So I will stop working and I will just play the lottery. And someday I will win and I will be millionaire and never work. Probably will never happen. So better you find a work. No? And hopefully you don't play lottery. That's not necessary. but that's the idea.
Srila Prabhupada describes the three types of ways of attaining cities that you just talked about. And he says in there that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami emphasizes very strongly Kripa Siddhi through the mercy of Pajatapa.
But at the same time, if we study the life of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was not neglecting his sadhana. No? My point is this. I get the point. And if you attain perfection through grace, of course, you may be super engaged in sadhana, but still the mercy that will come will be more than what you feel it's your part regarding sadhana. You follow. It's like, I don't know, the example is like, if you fall on a hole, you were walking on the jungle and you fall 10 meters down the hole. That's a conditioned soul in this world. Fall in the hole, if you some side. So for you to get out of the hole, there's not too much you can do, but there's something you can and should do, which is what? Thank you. So you have to start screaming, help, help. That's what we call help, help. From the hole. Hare Krishna. And hopefully someone will hear me. And that person hears me, sees me on the hole, takes pity on me and says, oh, you need some help. Yes, help me, save me. So the other person, I mean, you don't have to do much more then. Then you have to wait, to be patient. And the person will go and bring the rope, throw you the rope. And there's another thing you have to do. Nobody else can do that for you. It's not the big thing compared to all the work the other person is doing. You follow. But you have to do something. The other person is holding the rope on the other side, but you have to. And then the other person is taking you out. I mean, the main part is being done from upside. No? And maybe when you are being taken out of the hole, in the midst of that, you have some beehives? Like a beehive. You say, oh, a beehive. The person will say, it doesn't care. Let the beehive swallow you, but you are being saved now. So don't throw the rope. But you have to do something. But in comparison to what the other person is doing, that's almost nothing. But still you have to do that almost nothing. And when you are saved, I think, hopefully, if the person has saved your life and you are out of the hole, you won't say to that person, did you see how nicely I hold the rope? I don't think so. If you say that, the person will say, go back to the hole. You don't get it. So you will say to the person, you saved my life. You saved my life. I have to do something, but you saved my life. It's not that I saved my life, but I had to do something. So that's how we feel when we practice. Our sadhana means scream for help, hold on, and trust the one who is on the other side taking you out. It may seem not too much, but sometimes it's too much for us to trust, to have confidence, and to do our part. So,
very good. Thank you.
no, thank you for the idea. So again, yes, Kripa Siddhi may be there, but it's not an excuse for us to be lazy and just, we have to do our part. You see the life of Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he was really doing his part. He was so engaged in sadhana. We are 5:30. We have some minutes. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we could go till like 4:06, like that.
Yeah. If there are some questions more. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question, but first also just a small point relating to Putana. That I don't know where it is in the Shastra or anything. I just heard this before that in her
previous lifetime,
life, she was like the daughter of Bali Maharaj.
Yeah,
when
Lila.
she saw Lord Vamandev, she was like felt so much love for him. How he's so beautiful, and she felt that she really loved him. But then when he did the tricksy thing to her father, then she thought, I want to poison that boy. So I wondered whether maybe the mercy was because she did have some love for him, maybe like at one point. I wondered.
Yes, in the Puranas that's mentioned. I think the Vishnu Purana. Basically, what you have just told. So sometimes that is explained, and okay, that is some reason, if you will. But still, if you want to make that point, that's still like totally out of proportion. No? Because that boy is so charming, but I want to kill him after 5 minutes. You say that, and then you really try to kill him in your next birth. But Krishna is still giving you Vatsalya Bhava.
The way I heard it is he registered both sentiments.
Sorry?
The way I heard it is he registered the Lord.
Yeah.
At one time he registered that sentiment, next time he registered the other.
Yeah. So in that case, you can say, okay, there was some reason, some cause. But at the same time, if you put everything on the scale, you will see this is out of proportion here. And that's how Krishna's mercy works. And that's our hope. It's out of proportion. Especially as Mahaprabhu. I mean, if you go to Jagai Madai and all this type of examples. So, but
sorry, the question was relating to what you were speaking about earlier, about honouring the faith of others and not trying to change their mind. So I had a question regarding, like before I had some family from India, and I think it's a common idea sometimes that there's one person, particularly one lady, she said, I accept that Krishna is the supreme Lord.
Yeah.
But I don't accept that Lord Chaitanya is. So in an example of somebody thinking like that, should we just honour their faith and not try to change their mind, or should we use some Shastra to explain to them that actually Mahaprabhu is that same supreme Lord? Or do we just leave it, not try?
I will say that will depend on each particular case. Because again, Mahaprabhu himself acted in different ways. In certain cases, he continued with his, if you will, convincing or converting others. In some cases where he saw there's room for that, so he advanced with his proposal. But in some other cases, he knew when to enter into Mauna, if you will, and not say anything, because in every case there's a different disposition, and some people is open to hear and learn and change their viewpoints, and they will be nourished by that, and some other people will no, they will react negatively to that. So that may take time to know. Of course, as the more you are trying to speak, you may try to share something, and you will see how the other person is reacting, and know how much scope is there for real dialogue and real learning, or it's just like an ego battle who defeats the other.
Sorry, I forgot to mention something. It was because recently I read in the purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada was saying that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, he said that if one worships Krishna without Gauda, they can't be successful, or if they worship Gauda without Krishna, they can't be successful. So I was kind of thinking of it like that.
Yeah, I think Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, they wanted to make a point for us Gaudiyas, but I don't know. Let's see, for example, you see someone from the Vallabh Sampradaya, they're worshipping Krishna. But for them, Mahaprabhu is Balavacharya. They have their own Mahaprabhu. So what we will say, you're not worshipping our Gaur, our Mahaprabhu, so your worship of Krishna is totally in vain. No, it's not like that. Rupa Goswami himself praises Balavacharya, includes him in parts of his commentaries. So we have to understand all these statements in particular context. So yeah, for us, Gaudiyas, in our particular school of thought, there are certain emphases that will make our practice reach a certain fruit. But if you find people from other schools of backgrounds, and again, each case is so different, we have to react accordingly. So you can
there's practically no taco, but there's no point in destroying someone else's faith.
Exactly.
Because they're at a certain level according to Krishna's arrangement.
Also, I Sampradaya, we actually worship Radharani. Radharani is the essence.
More than Krishna. We still worship Krishna.
Oh, yeah. But
And inside
you
that,
don't get Krishna without Radharani.
yeah. And inside that, there are so many, again, nuances, because some devotees will, as we're speaking today in the morning, some devotees will have more affinity towards Madhurya Bhav, some others will have affinity towards Sakhya Bhav. There's place for that in our Sampradaya. There's, like, how to say, reference in the past, in our history. So it's important to honor those things properly and not to be, there's a term that I like to use that is racism. Not racism, racism. To be racist in the context of rasa. So this is the only thing and the only one, and everyone should surrender to the Manjari Bhav camp. That's being racist.
Not everyone's in that mood. Not everyone's in that nature.
Again, sorry?
Not everyone is in that nature.
Exactly. So one will have one affinity, one will have another affinity. And I would say, yes, before, we are to honor them. We are to learn from that. So what we are to learn from Mahaprabhu saying, we are to learn from the tree and the grass. What to speak of other Vaishnavas, what to speak of other spiritual real people with real affinities. We are to learn from the grass. Sometimes we might say, yeah, we have to learn from the grass and the tree, but when I meet other Vaishnavas, I will try to convince everyone and quarrel with everyone. It's not the application of this third verse. If you are humbler than the blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree, it means that what to speak, how you relate with other human fellows and spiritual people and members of your sampradaya, that should be in the perfect exemplary way. And if not, go back to the grass and to the tree and try to first work your work there, your way there.
May I ask you just a question?
Yeah.
Most demons, demonic people that came to have these pastimes with Krishna were very advanced devotees who are, I'm asking that wanted some time with Krishna. Krishna wanted time with them in a different pastime. Is that?
I think you refer to Jaya and Vijaya.
Yeah. There are some cases that is like that, but not necessarily every single case is like that. And what's your name, sir? What Sachinandan Prabhu mentioned is one of the classical examples, that is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Jaya Vijay, gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, and they take birth 3 times as demons, as asuras, in pairs, as brothers, if you will, in 3 different ages and 3 in connection to Nrsimhadev, Sri Ramachandra, and Sri Krishna, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakasipu, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, Dantavakra and Srisupa. So overtly they are demons, but actually they are just giving pleasure to Bhagavan in service by providing him the chance of having a good fight. Mm-hmm. Because that's the source of all the situation. But Narayan in Vaikuntha wants to taste Vira Rasa. Vira Rasa means chivalry, the mood of chivalry. But he has nobody in Vaikuntha to taste that. Imagine he goes in Vaikuntha to say, okay, come. And everyone Vaikuntha will be like, it's not happening. They are like worshipping him in Aishwarya Bhav. But he has the desire to taste this Vira Rasa. But in Vaikuntha, that's not the proper playground for that. But Jai and Vijay, somehow the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha hear about this desire of their master, and they feel so much willing. We want to serve you. We want to provide you this opportunity of tasting this Vira Rasa. We want to be instrumental in that. So please, no, we want to do. And again, Krishna won't taste Vira Rasa with someone who is not his devotee, because for tasting rasa, for Krishna to taste rasa, he tastes rasa only with the devotee, not with a non-devotee. There's no rasa there. So he can only taste rasa with the devotee, but in such a mode that there's place for a good fight. So everyone in Vaikuntha is a devotee, so there is a tasting of certain rasa, but not Vira Rasa. And coming to the world, there's a lot of asuras, but not necessarily they are devotees, so they won't be rasa. So then the need is, it has to be a devotee, but it has to be in such a disposition that he's offering me a good fight. And only then we will taste Vira Rasa. So what's the conclusion? Jai and Vijay are instrumentalized, if you will, by all this pastime. It's a long story, but the Kumaras get there, and Krishna himself makes the arrangement, Narayan, Bhagavan, for the gatekeepers to not allow the Kumaras to enter, for the 4 Kumaras to get enraged, all of which is atypical for them, no? Because the Jaya and Vijaya are actually, they are gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. They know what they are doing. They know who the Kumaras are. But for that moment, they kind of are covered, if you will, by some arrangement to not allow them to move. And the Kumaras, who are so known of being sober sages, totally tranquil, you say? Suddenly they become enraged and start to curse. So it's like, what's going on? This is Vaikuntha. But this is all the arrangement for these 2 devotees to be born as demons 3 lifetimes, and offer Bhagavan in his form as Sringadev, Ramchandra, and Krishna himself, respectively, a good fight. So in those cases, these demons are so-called demons, actually. They are topmost devotees. But it doesn't mean that every other single demon appearing are also devotee and have some background like as such. There may be cases this is not happening. So basically that. Okay.
Sorry, the other demons like Keshi or Arishta, they're like there's no rasa there for Krishna, like you were just explaining. The rasa is with devotees, so they're not considered, like Sri Radha's asking, they wouldn't be considered as like devotees that have come in that form.
Yeah, that's what Srila Jiva Goswami mentions in the the Krishna Sandarbha. He says that when Krishna is killing some demon who is not a devotee, to begin with, it's not Krishna killing the demon, it's the Vishnu portion in him doing that, because Vishnu has to do with this establishing dharma and killing demons. Krishna has nothing to do with that. He has only to do with play, as we spoke today in the morning. His only duty, quote unquote duty, his only business is to engage in lila, to play the flute and so on in Braj. So the Vishnu portion in him is the one who is actually killing the asuras. And those asuras that are killed by Krishna, who have no devotional background, they attain Brahma Sayuja. Why? Because when they enter in touch with Vishnu's Sudarshan, let's say, for that, I've given an example, the contact with the Sudarshan or the contact with Krishna or the Vishnu portion in Krishna, we're fighting with them, whatever may be the case, that contact totally purifies them from all sin. But it is, Jiva Goswami mentions, they have no bhakti samskars. They have no devotional impressions either, because they were not devotees. So what's the result when you have no devotional impressions and you are free from all sinful reaction? What's the result of that? Brahma Sayuja. Because you don't have a desire for serving Krishna in a favorable disposition, but at the same time you have no contamination. So that's the type of destiny. So that shows how some of those persons have no devotional background.
It's an act of mercy by Krishna, though, isn't it? He's liberating them from their demonic nature, and the soul can never stay permanently in the in the Brahmajayati. So eventually it will come down and start all over again. That's a mercy.
Check your watch.
This is a long topic.
Oh no.
2 words.
Sorry?
Answer in 2 words.
Not possible. Can we give it some? No, I'm saying not can we give it some time for speaking, but can we put some suspense, you say? And I may reply some other day because that can take time.
That's all right. It's just a comment.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Because I appreciate the comment, I would like to comment on the comment, but that may be a dangerous. Yeah, that can be a no return ticket, basically. So that gives us the excuse for some future visit. And if I have the fortune of being again in Brighton some other day, my very first lecture will be to address Sachinandam Prabhu questions that remain from the previous year or something.
Or not?
Yeah. For those who saw my recent podcast with Rasa Prabhu, you may have a hint of what's my view on that because I spoke on that a little bit.
I can send Prabhu the link.
Okay, whoever's interested, you can have my answer in the form of a link in this time.
It wasn't a question actually; it's a comment.
Oh yeah. But I was going to share some ideas in that connection. But yeah, it's nice that we leave the door open for future discussion. That's the whole idea of Harikatha. It's not that, okay, everything's closed, nothing else to tell, but so many more things we can speak about. But see you next time.
Once you get me going, you can't shut me up.
Thank you so much to all of you for your time, questions, presence. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Pramananda Divo,
Swami Padmanabha Maharaj ki
Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Vancha Kalachakaru Vyashta, Kripa Sindhu Vyaiva Cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Hari Bo.